This is my daughter, and this was years ago. We used to get tons of snow in Boston, and I would make these huge snow people, really big. And she named this one Verona Motazota. My wife, shortly before I met her, doing some modeling pictures. Mr. John Coltrane, candid shot backstage between sets, figuring out something. The original Herb Schnitzer print from the 60s. This is actually at a Herbie Hancock concert, and that's Herbie's tour manager and sound engineer. We became super close friends, still are, and his name's Rob Griffin. He is one of the finest engineers in the world, and he graciously helped me to set up my studio, which is a recording studio as well.
So let's talk about your performances. Your performance is very different contrary to the traditional way of playing, especially your project No Plan B. Can you talk about a bit about it?
No Plan B? Yeah, well, that developed with a dear friend who I met on a train. I was in a really good mood. He was in a really good mood. And I had just finished a double album release called Industrial Folk Music. I gave him a copy, and he gave me his card, and he was on his way to learn about the Maori people and Haka in New Zealand. And then about a month later, we contacted each other and decided to meet and collaborate. And long story short, we collaborated. He has a dance company called ADN Dialect. So I was involved in a show that he had already designed called Urban Shaman. I invited him through my nonprofit, Gravity Arts. I also have a nonprofit, arts and education arts 501c3 here in the US, to come and perform here. And that was a huge success. Anyways, we decided about a year and a half later, Angelo had the idea of a show called No Plan B, meaning, not having any comfort zone. We really don't have any comfort zone. And of course, nowadays, that speaks to our world now. This obviously there is no plan B with climate change and politics, and war obviously doesn't work. Humans want to inherently have a need to really improvise, to create and express their own uniqueness, their own voice, and their own technical abilities. As dancers and musicians, this works out really great. And Angelo decided a tetrahedron that would be gradually built throughout the show, put together on stage, all with live music, with musicians interacting with the dancers. Every single night was different. And and eventually the tetrahedron elevates from the floor, and big tetrahedron. It's kind of dangerous, actually. And it spins around, and dancers are going in and out. And there's these red bands. That's actually some red bands inside of the tetrahedron. But No Plan B is, it's a work of art that's really open-ended and features improvisation and chance and a strong storyline and really beautiful production and pretty funky music. At that point, I was really in sort of a jam band type of stage, a lot of kind of hypno, gravity, trance, funky stuff.
Wow, I guess each artist has a sense of ownership in this project.
Yeah, exactly.
And it is a sold-out show, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's incredible. How do you make sure that the performance and the audiences, if there is a balance between self-exploration, self-entertainment, and the audience can be well received from the message?
Well, that's a good question. Well, I want to say faith Faith that if you really are able to perform from your heart, and if you know your material, and if the design and the form and the structure is solid. And I think having a strong message, an aim, a meaning, and one thing George Russell always said was put yourself in the audience. Says George really hated to be bored by his music. So he would always tell his students and me, put yourself in the audience, you know, what would really excite you? So, yeah, I think because of that, any good show, you know, the audience gets involved. And I think also it's great to see technical just amazingness, but oftentimes that can be, you know, without a type of risk or, you know, it's nice to have a feeling of the unexpected, you know, like Wayne Shorter says, somebody asked him, what is jazz? And Wayne said, jazz is I dare you, you know, and I knew Wayne Shorter very well. Miles, it's well known that he told his musicians, don't you dare come on stage with something prepared to play, you know. Not being afraid of the unknown, putting yourself out there in that way is a great way to create a story and to create a new story. Because if you do the same thing and everything is all set and you know exactly what's going to happen, that's fine. It's more like a design. You're performing a design, but I think a work of art says something about what's happening in the moment and the story and an evolution and an interaction.
And it becomes an infinite possibilities of choices. And you also argue that creativity is not a matter of talents, but it's more a matter of choice.
Yeah.
So when you're doing all those improvisations or doing the performances in No Plan B, did you make those choices at the moment with all your backup information in your mind, or was it just done by intuition?
I think probably both. That's the importance of study. It's the importance of ear training. It's importance of knowing, you know, knowing the environment, knowing what's available and how it's related theoretically, but to not think about that, you know, when you're performing. So intuitively, I think it's also being conscious of melody and how, you know, how harmony can become melody, and there's a beginning, middle, and end to phrases, you know. It's not a puzzle necessarily. And in terms of the people in the group, one of the key qualities of the mobile trio and of all groups I've actually led is that nobody has a job to do. The reason it's called the mobile trio is a mobile, like a Calder mobile, there's a central axis, right? And then there's these different designs or shapes, and they rotate in the same axis of space and time, but they each have their own identity. But they have an interrelationship in terms of the, you know, the unified message of whatever that work of art is.
Wow. So all those little details to make this performance and production so meaningful and impactful. I guess there are a lot of the artists are stepping into this so-called multidisciplinary project. And what are some of the advices you want to give to them?
To be aware of any urge to control another artist in a way that is unnecessary, to really listen, to the aim and intent of the people you're collaborating with, to be very, very clear of expectations, because putting on a large production takes an enormous amount of planning and it takes competent directing. And to also ask yourself the question, is our work styles compatible? Or is there something that's really going to cause some type of friction and not really work out, you know? You're creating a unity, but you're also respectfully illuminating, showcasing each of the individual's unique talents. I'm not a choreographer. I'm not going to tell Angelo what to do with his dancers, right? At the same time, I'll give opinions of what I really like and what and maybe some ideas. And the same way with the music, you know. Angelo's not a musician, but he listens to a lot of music, and obviously dancers dance to music. So he has an idea of what he wants. It's not easy to collaborate.
No, you have to multitask and think of so many things at a moment.
Yeah.
Was there an initial thoughts you had and changed after the performance?
Little things. There's like a 12 or 13 or 14 or 15, I forget how many scenes there are, but it's on a timeline. Generally, we work on timelines. So those might have gotten stretched. A scene might have been omitted and exchanged with another one. I might have just swapped out a piece of music for another piece of music like we did in Buenos Aires, so.
Wow, I was just amazed by how much work and how much thought you have to put into this project. It's love, it's dedication, and it's also laboring, I guess.
Yeah. And it doesn't always pay great, you know, because you have a lot of people to pay. Dancers, musicians.
Like 40 people?
Well, in the show that we recently did, there was 42 people. But in terms of no plan B, no plan B would be about maybe 20 dancers and musicians.
Are you working on another project right now?
I'm working on a revision of Bach's St. John's Passion that is finished, but I am putting together a quintet, I think soon to be a sextet, and we are rehearsing actually up here. That's the first movement. There's 40 movements in the Passion, and I think we're doing like 31 or 32 of them. Because I haven't even gotten into form yet. Exponential, it just, you know, there's choices of form. How do you want to develop stuff? And then there's historical, you know, languages, stories. How do you want to develop your story? You know, there's modes, psychological modes that go all the way through cultures around the world, throughout history.
Wow, I think this really frees us from traditional ways of looking at major and minor, circle fifth ways of thinking.
Yeah, it's not meant to take the place of, because that's really, really important stuff. Western music theory is really important, and so much music has been created and will continue to be created, and it creates a certain type of sound and a certain type of palette of jumping off place. It's a perspective to add to it. I think in your case, as being a celebrated concert pianist, as you are, and then deciding to take on improvisation, learning this perspective, you've already brought so much of that language to the top of your knowledge. So coming up with phrases that have beginning and middle and ends and have the dynamic lift, and in your style.
I mean, I have so much to explore in this book for sure, because I just had a scratch of it. Yeah. Wow, so you said you also did a lot of the researching and studies during the pandemic for Bach's Prelude. And there's a lot of interesting things that we're to talk about. Yeah. So now you become so reasonably that you start from this analysis, and then you get back to all those giants way back then, centuries ago's music, and look from their perspective. Yeah. And also connect to nowadays music.
Yeah. I've always liked Bach. I've always been intimidated by Bach, and I've never really quite understood Bach. But using this perspective, and the luxury of having so much time during COVID, I really dove into first the chorales and then the fugues, some of the preludes, and I understood, based on this vertical premise, you know, when you hear Bach, you hear a chord progression. He's very, as it would be called, vertical. Vertical means the sound of each chord. You hear horizontal, linear logic happen, you know, and so these core harmonies are happening within these larger contexts, and that type of understanding led to the idea, like in the Lydian scale, you know, there's not just 7 types of modes. There's actually, this is from the book Applied Modal Analysis. This is this is the current version of chart B, which is this is the Lydian scale. These are all the chord modes that are available.
I remember that.
Yeah. This is, you know, kind of a little mind-numbing, but all of these came from analysis of Bach, really. You know, so that same C major chord can be C Lydian, right? And then it's not going anywhere. But now put it in F Lydian, because F Lydian, all the white notes, also creates a C major chord. Now we hear it as a relationship that I just did when I showed you the flatline keys, right? It also comes out of B flat Lydian. You're still hearing C major, but you're hearing a relationship, and those are beautiful relationship of supporting, you know. That's happens to be called the major flat 7 scale traditionally, or the Mixolydian mode. Can also happen out of oh my goodness, it can happen out of A flat Lydian augmented. So now you've got, or D flat Lydian diminished. And these are all found in Bach. So the idea of a chord is a multi-dimensional, you can have what I term multi-dimensional vertical interpretive analysis. So I can you know, play a standard like invitation, and I can, you know, switch it up with different types of ways of relating to each one of these chords. E flat Lydian. E flat Lydian. A flat Lydian augmented, or B Lydian diminished, or D Lydian augmented. G flat Lydian. B 9-tone order. D flat minor. over A minor. I could do B, whatever. So forth. I can choose to relate to the chords in different ways. Now I was thinking about that as I was doing it, but when I'm playing, I kind of know stuff is there, and then I know something else might be possible, and I might play something that, you know, just make it work. You know, a great chef will always, you know his, her, their ingredients. You know, Bach's got the same ingredients as Taylor Swift.
Yeah.
You know?
Where do you see the future of this analysis heading to?
I can't predict the future, but I think one thing I'd love to see is I'd love to see classical musicians demystify the joy of improvisation and the freedom that is really available to express their own unique individuality, you know? I don't want to tell people what to do, but I just think opening yourself up to the wealth of music in all genres, perhaps even getting away with departments eventually overall in conservatories.
Yeah. I think intuitively, each musician wants to have their own voice and want to have improvisatory technique or play freely basically on the piano or on their own instruments. But this method or analysis concept really gives a logical sense of ways to open the gateway and to let us to explore more languages and dive more into the improvisational world. And this is absolutely beautiful. So
Thanks.
Thank you for everything. Thank you
Thanks,
so
Tommy.
much for all the work, all the time, all the dedications.
My pleasure. One thing I've learned in the years I've been around, which I can't believe how many that is that there will always be unexpected difficulties and struggles in life, and to not allow yourself to be defeated. And if you don't have any hope, you need to make some hope. Try and find some sort of glimmer of light to keep going, you know? It's important to have balance with your life, your health, nature, your community. You know, these are all. I'm a human being first and a musician second.
That's it.
Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna meditate on those words for the month, maybe years even. I have so much takeaways from today's conversation. Thank you again, Ben, so much for letting me dive with your work together through this deep conversation, actually, and let me to explore with your movie, a long movie actually, into this short, condensed 1 hour session.